What's up, everyone? Welcome on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Maybe it's Thursday evening where you are. Is it Thursday, Carol?
Yep.
So any of you that have missed, I have a new assistant named Carol who's over here.
Do we need to pop up?
No, she doesn't have to jump out here. But she's moderating the debate. So for any of you unruly guests, she'll she'll handle it. Anyways, welcome. Who's new here that I don't know? There's a lot of new people. I know, 1,500 a day. So how many of you saw the tool video that I did? I know some of you did. So this is interesting. The tool video is the fastest growing video that I've had. I think it's over 30,000 views in not even, 10 o'clock tonight it'll be 24 hours. So it'll probably be hopefully up to about 50,000. But for my channel, and I have extremely varied content. So because of that, some of my videos, and because I put out videos virtually every day, I don't have a video out for a week or so, to kind of build up the views or anything. So a lot of times people don't realize and don't go back. I had some people making in the comments, "Oh, can you do even more complicated songs than this?" I said, I've got 430 videos on my channel. Just go back to last week. I did some more complicated things than the tool. Andrew Shep's mixing tutorial. What? Andrew Shep's makes his own mixing tutorials. Why do I need to do an Andrew Shep's mixing tutorial? Anyways, it's pretty funny. So, couple things here. So my title of this stream today is, and this is kind of an interesting thing I just was talking about over lunch with Aaron. It's called The Musical Trinity, the Key to Lasting Success. Well, I started thinking about this when I was talking about Tool, because I always think that every band I like, that everybody should like them. But I said to Aaron's my old assistant, I said, "Aaron, why does everybody like Tool on here?" Just about everybody. Not everybody, but for the most part. And so we got to talking about this thing, the musical trinity. The musical trinity is the public acceptance, critical appeal, critics like you, and other musicians like you. Now, it's very difficult to hit on all three of those. So we were kind of talking about what groups historically actually can hit all three of those. What is something that is the public likes, that is really successful commercially, that the critics like, and that other musicians like. Okay. So I said the first thing that always comes to mind is the Beatles. Now the Beatles, I think you could say that is that critics love the Beatles, the public love the Beatles, and musicians love the Beatles. So I have my new camera set up. Check this out. Check how clear this is. So I'm going to put the Beatles on here. Beatles. Now, the Beatles, do they check off the public? Of course. The critics love the Beatles, and other musicians love the Beatles. I would say generally. Now, not everyone. Not everyone. What are some other ones? I say Radiohead is somebody. We'll start with these. Radiohead. Now, does it mean that everyone loves them? The public? Well, the public loved Radiohead during the Benz OK Computer. Critics love Radiohead, and other musicians love Radiohead. Cannibal Corpse, I wouldn't say, Trent, is... I like Cannibal Corpse, but not everybody likes Cannibal Corpse. Now, Chandro just said AC/DC. Do critics like AC/DC? Because other musicians like AC/DC, but I don't know if I know most musicians that I know. We'll put AC/DC on here. Let's see if they check off all the categories. You probably need to print one more of these, Carol. The public loved AC/DC. We'll talk about them at their heyday. Critics, I don't think critics loved AC/DC. I think other musicians loved AC/DC though, because every musician I know loves AC/DC. Let's see. What about Eminem? Let's see here. I think. What about Eminem? When Eminem came out, the critics loved Eminem, the public did, and musicians did. Musicians that I knew. I thought Eminem, and I call these things are critic proof. I think Eminem, at his height, checked off all those boxes. What about the Doors? Music critics are wannabes. Okay, am I a wannabe? Because I'm a musical critic, I would say. Michael Jackson. Let's talk about Michael Jackson. I'd say Michael Jackson in his prime, definitely. Michael Jackson is definitely hits all three. MJ, public, critics, musicians. What about somebody like Jeff Buckley? I wouldn't put on there because Jeff Buckley never reached mass critical success. Prince. What about Prince? What about Prince? That's a great. Whoops. P-R-I-N. There. Prince. So Prince, public acceptance, critics loved Prince, and other musicians loved Prince for sure. Let's see here. I'm looking down here. I see the Grateful Dead. Critics didn't really like the Grateful Dead. Okay, Sting, The Police. The Police is a band that was critic-proof, I would say. The Police. The Police hits all three of these for sure. In their prime, they hit all those. Miles Davis. Great call, whoever just said that. Miles Davis, if you look at Kind of Blue, in the 50s, Miles Davis was loved by the public, the critics, and musicians. And I would say that historically, Duke Ellington was another one that was incredibly, those of you probably don't know who Duke Ellington is, but Duke Ellington was loved by the public, was massively big. Critics loved Duke Ellington and other musicians loved Duke Ellington. Kurt Cobain. This is interesting. Kurt Cobain, in my, I would say Nirvana. We'll say Nirvana. Now, Nirvana was loved by the critics, was loved by the public, was loved by the critics. What about other musicians? I don't know. I think that they were loved by other musicians, but a lot of people didn't like Nirvana, especially 80s metal people that they displaced. I keep seeing David Bowie on there, and I think that that's true. I think David Bowie, I saw something else here, Queen. I think that Queen is definitely a very good call. I'd say David Bowie and Queen are both fall into this category. Queen was huge. Let's put Queen down first. Queen was loved by the public, they loved by the critics, and musicians loved Queen. Let's see here. Who else did I say? David Bowie. David Bowie, I think, fell into all those categories. The critics loved David Bowie, and musicians did too. I saw, let me see here. This is interesting. Led Zeppelin. Okay. When Led Zeppelin came out, they were not liked by the critics. But nowadays, the critics, or Zeppelin, is loved by. Critics hated Zeppelin. They did. They did. But I think that critics nowadays realize how important Zeppelin is. Now, Zeppelin was a delayed artist that the critics begrudgingly accepted. I'm going to put Led Zeppelin right there. That was definitely the public, and critics eventually liked them. Okay, I see an interesting thing. Antonio Carlos Jobim. For those of you that don't know him, he was probably the greatest Brazilian songwriter of all time. I have Radiohead on here already, for those of you that are saying Radiohead. Jobim. Jobim was definitely in the 60s. Jobim was very popular with the public and with critics and with musicians. Those of you that don't know Antonio Carlos Jobim, he was an incredible Brazilian composer. He wrote The Girl from Ipanema, he wrote Desafinado, he wrote, One Note Samba, How Insensitive, it's so many songs. Triste, Wave, so many songs. Let's see here. Steely Dan. Critics, did critics like Steely Dan? I think critics liked Steely Dan, and they were a really big band. It's hard to find Steely Dan. They were definitely loved by the public. Critics and musicians loved Steely Dan. Not all. John Mayer. This is a great one. This is interesting. I see John Mayer on here. And what do you guys think? John Mayer. Do critics like John Mayer, though? I'm not sure. Do critics like John Mayer, Carol? What do you think?
He's okay.
Critics, not you, though.
Critics? I'm okay with him. I told you, right?
You like John Mayer, yeah.
I'm okay with him now.
Do critics like John Mayer? There's a very interesting one. Big Bang Upper just said John Williams. Okay, I'll give John Mayer, public, critics, and musicians love John Mayer. I don't know about the critics. I'm going to put that in parentheses. I'm not sure. I just heard John Williams there. Now, that is an incredibly good call, because John Williams was definitely, musicians love John Williams. Critics love John Williams. That's why he wins Oscars all the time. John Williams. Boom, boom, boom. No question about it. Musicians love John Williams. He hits that musical trinity here. Okay, see this guy here, this Mark guy here? Wait, hold on. Scroll up. Anytime you see anything rude here, they're gone. Boom! Any immature stuff like that by idiots? Mm-hmm. I say that in the nicest way. Right? What's that?
I got him.
I just did it.
Okay.
Blocked forever. Stevie Ray Vaughan. I wouldn't say Stevie Ray Vaughan was a huge artist. But wait, what did I just see here? Jimi Hendrix. Now, Jimi Hendrix definitely falls on this list for sure, right? You got to put Hendrix on there. Hendrix. Hendrix was loved was big. He had big records. Critics loved Hendrix, and other musicians really loved Hendrix. Bruce Springsteen, the boss. Critics loved Springsteen for his lyrical content. Bruce Springsteen, the boss, definitely falls in on all three of these things. I don't know though. Do musicians like Bruce Springsteen? He gets the critics. I'm not sure that musicians think, oh, Bruce Springsteen is the greatest record. George Benson. Good call on that. George Benson is definitely on here. George Benson was huge. For those of you that don't know George Benson, he was a massively big star in the 80s, R&B star. He was public, he was very big. Critics loved Benson. They loved his jazz work, and musicians loved Benson. Still do. One of the greatest guitar players of all time. Black Sabbath, no, critics aren't going to like Black Sabbath probably, and some musicians do. U2, that's a good question here, U2. Critics loved U2, and so did the public. And if you go back to Joshua Tree, now musicians that I knew loved U2 back then. I did. I think that musicians like U2. I see Larry on there. Larry, what did you just say here? Larry just said James Brown. James Brown, for sure. That's a good call. James Brown. He hits the musical Trinity. Public, critics, and musicians love James Brown. How can you not love James Brown? Now, Quincy Jones. Well, Quincy Jones was not really a star, though, you know? He didn't have critical success like that. Coldplay. I don't know if critics like Coldplay anymore. Soundgarden. Now, Soundgarden is an interesting one. Okay? Soundgarden, critics love Soundgarden. Because everybody loves Chris Cornell's or loved Chris Cornell's voice. And every musician I know loves Soundgarden. Anything that has blues in it. Adele. You know, Adele. Adele, I think, was equally loved. After 21, not this last record, but the public, critics, and musicians loved Adele. I think it was the same with Beyonce. I think musicians like Beyonce, critics, and the public obviously loves Beyonce. Because every musician I know loves Beyonce and loves Adele. They just do. Just their incredible singing. Foo Fighters, interesting. Yes. What do critics like Foo Fighters though? I'm not sure. Wait, do we have Tool on the other one here? We didn't put Tool. Let's put Tool down here. Tool. Whoops, my battery here, it says low. It's fine though. Wonder if it screwed up my thing. No, it didn't. It's fine now. Tool. Tool kind of got it started. For those of you that didn't watch my Tool video, it's out. It came out last night. Tool. I know musicians love Tool. Do critics love Tool? Yes or no? What do you think? Do critics love Tool? I don't know. I'm going to put that with a parentheses there. Tool is definitely part of that. Is almost a. So we had yes. Do you think so? Yes, yes, yes. Well, these are some metal people saying that critics like Tool. Alan Holdsworth doesn't reach the not Pitchfork. There you go. Not indie rockers. Oh, by the way, my Beato book is on sale right now. All my things are on sale for 30% off. My 2 courses, my book. The code is RB747. Just think of the plane. You can write that down, Carol. Put in the thing. That's the discount code. Go to my website. You want to support my channel? I don't make money off these videos when I do this. What makes this song great? They all get demonetized. So I can be on here and make videos all the time. You can do that. Oh, by the way, too, I'm going to do a super chat bid here. Between now and the end of the stream, whoever bids the most gets a 30-minute hang with me on Google Hangouts. I'll listen to your music, critique it, whatever you want. Anybody in the world. 30 minutes with me. Boom. Whoever is the highest bidder on Super Chat. You know Super Chat that you do right here and on whatchamacallit. Larry, Elton John. Elton John. Critics dig Elton John for sure. Because Elton John, Bernie Taupin's lyrics, yes. Elton John, I think he falls in this for sure. What are other rock bands that hit this? Or what about other, are there other hip hop artists? Does everybody like Dr. Dre? Or people like Hans Zimmer? Is Hans Zimmer, you know, do the musicians like Hans Zimmer? You know, that's kind of a that's a tough one. You know, Metallica. Do I don't know if music critics like Metallica, honestly. Muse. I just saw Muse go by. I think that Muse is a band that critics really liked, but I wouldn't say that they were massively big with the public. I mean, not massively big like Adele or Beyonce. How big is Carol? How big is Muse? Big?
Pretty big.
I mean, in Europe, definitely. Okay, I'll put Muse on here. Well, the public, though, they're not that big here. I'll give them that. But critics, at one point, I think Muse is kind of, I don't know about now. Tom Petty. I know that the public love Tom Petty, and I know that musicians, well, critics love Tom Petty too. Every musician I know loves Tom Petty. I'm going to put him on that list there. Stevie Ray Vaughan was never really huge. The Beastie Boys. The Beastie Boys were definitely loved by the critics and were a really big band. You see the spammers here that do these little smiley faces and everything?
Yeah.
They're gone. If I block somebody, you can always write me and say, hey, please unblock me. I didn't mean anything by it. But anyways, I don't like those kind of things. Blink-182, critics, not a big critic band. Peter Gabriel. Absolutely. No question about it. Neil Young, too. Same thing. Let's see here. Peter Gabriel. I need another one of these things. Make me about 3 of them. Peter Gabriel. And who else did I say? Peter Gabriel and... I already said Eminem. Wait, Peter Gabriel and... who else was there? You know, in their Neil Young, definitely. But I don't know. Do other musicians like Neil Young? That's a good question. I'm not sure. Musicians I know do. Rock musicians loved Neil Young in the past. But I'm not sure. I'm going to put that in parentheses. Bjork. Fernando says Bjork. Larry says musicians like Neil Young. Okay, good. Alan Holdsworth. Well, Alan Holdsworth never had critical success. Jeff Buckley didn't have huge critical success. Critics hated Rush. Peter Frampton. Musicians loved Peter Frampton, and he was massively big. I'll put Peter Frampton on there. Musicians that knew anything knew Peter Frampton was great. Metheny, Pat Metheny. For jazz players, he had a massively big worldwide following. Not huge in the United States necessarily at his peak, but definitely was huge worldwide. He was huge on every continent in the world. So this is interesting here because it really it's difficult to it's hard to be a classical musician, right, and have commercial success, have the public know who you are. John Williams is somebody that fit that bill. Now, historically, obviously, when Beethoven was incredibly well known in his time. So was Franz Liszt. So was Paganini. I mean, there's people that were virtuosos. Yo-Yo Ma. Is Yo-Yo Ma really critically acclaimed? He is, obviously, by musicians and critics. Not critically acclaimed, I mean, but publicly. Is he super famous? Leonard Bernstein was very famous in his lifetime, for sure. Kanye, does he hit all those things? I don't know, because I think Kanye is kind of hit or miss with musicians, honestly. The Chili Peppers. Musicians I know really like the Chili Peppers. Dream Theater, I love Dream Theater, but I don't know if people really, how many people really know Dream Theater? Now, Herbie Hancock, that's an interesting one. Herbie Hancock, Taylor Shred, Cannibal Corpse. Again? Two for Cannibal Corpse. So Kanye is great. Jay-Z. I would say, if you're going to say, Dr. Dre. Do I know Badfinger? Come on, Limix. Do I know Badfinger? That's like somebody asking me or telling me I should listen to the Tool album that the song I did last night on my video is from. You should listen to the Tool album. It's like, yo, bro, what do you think? You think I haven't heard the record? I just did a 20-minute video on one of the songs on it. Man. Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac definitely checks all those boxes. What about the Eagles? They would too. Van Halen? Yeah. Musicians love Van Halen at the time. I always think of these things at their peak. These bands at their peak. Amy Winehouse. Musicians liked Amy Winehouse. Paul Simon for sure. Simon and Garfunkel, all musicians loved. Critics loved Simon and Garfunkel. I know you said Paul Simon and the public, they were massively big. Joe Satriani, not big, critical acclaim. Rage Against the Machine was somebody that every musician I know loved. Critics and the public, critics and musicians loved Rage. Stevie Ray, um, Stevie Ray, Public Enemy. Bill Evans was Bill Evans. I'm trying to think about how big Bill Evans really was in the um, in the '60s. I mean, I love Bill Evans, and critics obviously love Bill Evans. But there's very few people that were massively big. I see you, Tom, on Nirvana. I had Nirvana on there, absolutely. Queens of the Stone Age. Um, they reached critical success with, No One Knows. I'm not sure how many other really huge songs that they had, actually. John Coltrane. Now, John Coltrane definitely hits all of those, obviously. John Coltrane was famous in the 60s, continues to be incredibly famous, and obviously, changed the course of music and jazz. Um, so there are jazz players that can be on this list, no question about it. B.B. King, definitely. If we look to blues artists like that, Wes Montgomery, Renzo said, totally agree. Wes was loved by the critics. Here's the interesting thing about Wes, though, is that Wes was loved by the critics for his straight ahead music. I'm not sure for his CTI records that he did, the records that he did with strings and things like that were not as big. So I think it's tough to say that. I already said the Police, Frederick. I see that on there. Police, I totally agree. The Rolling Stones, definitely the Rolling Stones. Although I had this discussion about the Stones with Aaron, my old assistant. We were talking about it over lunch today. And he said, well, do musicians like the Stones? And I said, I love the Stones. Am I a normal musician, though? I happen to have incredibly wide taste, and I think the Stones were one of the greatest, obviously, the Stones were one of the greatest bands of all time. I would say yes. Tom says James Taylor. Obviously, James Taylor. Bill Evans was huge. Bill Evans was big in the '60s. He was. Bill Evans is definitely on there. Okay, we'll put Bill Evans. Johnny Cash, absolutely. Bon Jovi. I wouldn't say the critics were big into Bon Jovi or the Smiths. McCartney, of course. Zappa was not really huge with the public. It's hard to be, I already had Queen on there. Roy Orbison, definitely. Roy Orbison. The Who, absolutely. Every musician that I know liked The Who. I saw Willie Nelson on there. Every musician I know loved Willie Nelson. Uh, the Doors. I'm a massively big Doors fan. Um, Obviously, the critics. Did the critics love the Doors? Critics loved Jim Morrison's lyrics. They definitely did. A lot of critics loved. He was really, really studied. They would definitely be on there. Jim Croce. I saw Jim Croce come up here. No question about it. Jim Croce was amazing. He was a phenomenal lyricist. Musicians love Jim Croce. Obviously Bob Dylan. I don't know how he didn't come up, but Bob Dylan. I named one of my kids after him. Um, Bob Dylan definitely hits that. Leonard Cohen, Patsy Cline, um, Eric Clapton. No question about that. Eric Clapton belongs in this. These are people that are superstars, though. This is how you become a superstar. Fernando, I already said Michael Jackson. Where were you? Come on, man. Um, what was the question again? The musical Trinity. Corey Henry. How many people know Corey Henry? Obviously, I know Corey Henry. And Carol does. Joni Mitchell, Tom just said. Totally agree. Joni Mitchell in her prime was incredibly famous. Critics loved her and musicians loved her. Um, Guthrie Govan. Nobody knows Guthrie. I mean, musicians know Guthrie. Jacob Collier. That's an interesting one. Jacob Collier doesn't really have the public. He's not known by the public really. Um, I mean, it's very hard to reach critical success, or I'm sorry, fame with the public, and to become and to be loved by the critics. I mean, Zeppelin in their time was not loved by the critics. They just weren't. And that was a big thing with them. I mean, I think that bugged them. Um, does anybody know Warren Zevon? Of course. Um, okay, super chat. $2, that's it? Okay, here's the deal. Super chat. Super chat is where you donate money to the channel here. 30-minute hang with me where I'll listen to your music and critique it. 30-minute Skype or whatever it would be. Google Hangout. $2, that's it? That's pretty unbelievable. I'm worth $2. Danny Elfman, Queen. Too scared to have me bust your chops? What are you kidding me? Is everybody too scared? Renzo, you can't bid on there. You have to bid in super chat, or you can actually you can donate on my. You can go to my website and donate. Hit the donate button and say what it's for. Okay, you don't have to do it through super chat, but I would like it to do through super chat.
Nice.
CA, I don't know what CA is, but there we go. Phil, what is CA? What is that? Canadian dollars? Is that what it is? No. There's €5. No hangout. Look at that, Frederick. I have Pink Floyd on there already. I think I did. Pink Floyd's definitely on there. Canadian, okay. Man. My excuse to send. Paul Desmond. Paul Desmond. I'll put Paul Desmond on there. I wouldn't say that Paul Desmond was a household name. Take 5 was for sure in the 60s. Leonard, thank you. Look at that. Marco, Sting. I put Police on there. Sting definitely, no question about it. No question about it. Tom Waits for sure. Tom Waits was big in really, 25 years ago now. But, as far as critical success, loved by the public and by musicians, definitely. Chuck Berry, absolutely no question about it. Invented invented rock and roll. Glenn Gould. Hold on. See this thing?
Mm-hmm. Which one?
What's this free cash here? Get rid of that kind of stuff here. There we go, gone. Porcupine Tree. Porcupine Tree is definitely a more of a musician thing. I wouldn't say that they reached critical success. Gino Vanelli was big in the was definitely big in the 70s, but only had one really massively big hit. I Just Want to Stop. Chris, just want to chat for 30 minutes. There you go. Boom. 60 bucks is it so far. Let's see who can beat that. That's awesome. That's good for one anyways. Oasis. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about Oasis. If that was, I knew other musicians that loved Oasis. I loved Oasis back then. Glenn Gould. Leonard Bernstein was half kidding. Leonard Bernstein was, obviously West Side Story was massively big in the 50s. Kansas, I wouldn't say Kansas. I mean, Kansas was not necessarily loved by critics. Javi, yes, I have Bowie on here for sure. Jeremy, I already had James Brown on here. Slipknot, I wouldn't say. The Verve? The Verve. Yeah, I love The Verve. Bob Marley. There you go. The Strokes. I'm not sure the Strokes belong on there. The Supremes, definitely. I was thinking about this too, that a lot of Motown artists, Motown was universally loved by musicians, by critics. Most Motown groups were. So, no, I mean, for sure. And, Motown. Do you guys know Motown? Come on, you know Motown. But the Supremes. What is Motown? Oh my God. You serious? Come on. Does somebody not know what Motown is? You've heard of the Jackson 5, right? J.S. Bach. Charlie Parker. AC/DC. Well, AC/DC is on my list. Every musician I know loved AC/DC. Earth, Wind, and Fire. What about the Eagles? The Eagles. Did critics really like the Eagles? I don't know about that. I'm not sure. If Stevie Wonder, definitely. Stevie Wonder falls in that. I have Queen already. Santana, Aretha Franklin, absolutely, was huge. People loved Aretha Franklin, and critics loved Aretha Franklin. Critics hated the Eagles. Yeah, critics didn't really like the Eagles. Anyways, all right. Once again, we got my book is on sale today, 30% off, and my 2 courses, Advanced Harmonic Concepts and Mastering Modes of the Major Scale. I've got 2 books, actually, my Beato book and my YouTube transcription, 103-page transcription PDF. They're both on sale, 30% off. The code is RB747. And I'm auctioning off right now for the next 5 minutes when I end the chat here. Who's going to bid the highest here? For a 30-minute Skype with me. We can talk. I'll listen to your music and critique it. Whatever you want. It won't be Skype. It'll be Google Hangouts. My Skype isn't working right now. So here's your chance. Let's see. Not King Cole. Nat King Cole for sure. Renzo, you can do PayPal. If I get PayPal, I'm going to open up this here and see. Whoops, I just disconnected the camera here. Let's see. I'm going to see if I'm going to open up my PayPal and see if you want to bid through there and donate on my channel. I'm going to go to it right now and see if anyone did anything here. Let's see what we're up to here. I saw something come through here. No, I'm waiting. Joao Carlos. What are the boundaries rules of plagiarism that state this is plagiarism? If you steal something from somebody and put your name on it, that's plagiarism. Don't worry about not knowing Motown. Could you give your thoughts about it? Yeah, don't plagiarize. That's my thoughts. Rod Stewart. That's a good question, Rod Stewart. And Madonna. I gotta think about those. Grateful Dead. I wouldn't say the critics loved the Grateful Dead. Most critics I knew did not love the Grateful Dead. Yes, worry about not knowing about Motown. That's pretty funny. Uncopyrightable. The longest word you can write in English. That's a pretty long word. All right. So it's going. I got Chris here at $60 for the Google Hang. Going once. Going twice. Boom. Got it. There we go. All right, so we're good for today. This is great. This is really, really interesting. If you are one of these people, if you can make it on this list here and hit the musical Trinity, you're golden. You got it, Chris. Write to me on my Gmail, rickbeato1 at Gmail. All right? All right, you guys are awesome. Watch my tool video. Try and get it up to 50,000. Oh, my son Dylan's videos is almost to 1 million views. If you guys want to watch that. If you go to my channel and you look at it, it's the second, other than my Apple video. I want it to get to it's close to getting to 1 million. It's got about 30,000 more views and it'll hit 1 million. So if you have 1:20 to watch my son Dylan's video, just go to the top viewed videos on my channel and click on it. Anyways, you guys are awesome. Thanks. Oh, log in. Sign up to my second channel, Rick Beato Live. I go on. I'll be on tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.